Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche, and this is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you today. The CEO of Northback Holdings addresses the Lethbridge Chamber as coal mining opponents make their voices heard. Plus, Air Transat passengers might have to make alternative travel plans. Starting Wednesday, the airline will begin canceling flights, leading up to a potential work stoppage by 750 pilots. And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation plays Santa Claus, releasing its 2025 Naughty and Nice list. We find out which Alberta politicians are on what list.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. The debate around open-pit coal mining in the Rocky Mountains was reignited at a Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce luncheon on Monday. The CEO of Australian company Northback Holdings held direct talks with residents inquiring about the contentious Grassy Mountain metallurgical coal mining project. Critics of the project say that resumption of the unrestored former mining site will do massive damage to the environment. BCN's Landon Hickok has the story.
Mike Yun, the CEO of Northback Holdings, was in attendance at a lunch and learn with Chamber of Commerce members and other public attendees. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce set up the event for Northback to lay out their proposed mining plan after Chamber members expressed their uncertainty on the Grassy Mountain coal mining project.
The reason the member asked us if we could reach out and see if we could do something was because they didn't know enough about it. And so part of the chamber is like doing what we do with election forums, asking those questions, learning more. And I think there's still more to learn because it's still in the process. So I think the more information that we can get out, the better.
This is an important project for Alberta and an opportunity to look at the plans and have the Alberta Energy Regulator digest it and look to see if it is a viable project for the province.
The event held at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center was met with protesters outside who say they're disappointed it has come to this point after the Alberta Energy Regulator granted Northback an exploratory permit earlier this year to the site, an old unreclaimed mining site from over 60 years ago.
I guess we're out here because we're fed up with having to express opposition to the Grassy Mountain mine. It was first proposed in 2013. It went through a federal provincial review and it was rejected, soundly rejected. The significant adverse environmental effects were greater than any uncertain economic benefit, in the opinion of a very informed panel.
The city of Lethbridge has an official position to oppose the mine off concerns of contamination to the Old Man River and watershed. Project critic and former mayor of Lethbridge, Chris Spearman, said he felt that Northback fell short of providing transparent answers regarding the project and concerns over its potential environmental impacts.
This was an opportunity to answer some very basic questions, and I thought they weren't being honest. As many people know, I've been asking the same questions for about a year and a half, 18 months. I'm very concerned from an agri-food basis how water, air, and soil might be impacted by wind-blown coal dust. We have significant winds here, and farmers, ranchers, agri-food processors, irrigators would all be affected if wind-blown coal dust can't be controlled. Northback would do themselves a lot of favors and it would help. I'm not opposed to economic development, but when they are reluctant to provide answers, that just raises suspicions.
The luncheon was closed off to media with recording devices, and Northback refused to take questions after the event. From Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
Thanks so much, Landon. Air Transat passengers might have to make alternate travel plans. Transat AT says it's beginning to wind down operations and cancellations would ramp up in the lead up to a potential work stoppage by some 750 pilots that could begin as soon as Wednesday morning. The pilots union issued a 72-hour strike notice over the weekend as it seeks a contract that boosts wages, job security, and quality of life. The two sides have been in Montreal for around-the-clock negotiations over the past week. The active planes in Air Transat's fleet ferry tens of thousands of passengers on more than 500 flights each week. A back-to-office plan for federal public servants is coming soon. Prime Minister Mark Carney says the plan will come into sharper view over the next several weeks, noting the civil service grew to an unsustainable size in the last decade.
There is an element as well, and I know this is understandably a topic of some focus, of greater time in the office or return to office. I just want to be clear about that process. One is that we will be engaging with the public sector unions on the modalities of that, on the appropriate levels of that. We will come to a sharper view on it over the course of the next several weeks. And there will likely be different levels of return depending on seniority, depending on role, and obviously depending on capacity. This is about making, I'm a huge fan of the public service. We need the public service at this critical time, and we need public servants to have all the tools, including offices and workspaces that make their jobs as interesting, as impactful as possible.
But the Federal Public Service Union is concerned about this move. It says any return to office decisions should be grounded in evidence. The Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada warns the back to office order will make it potentially harder to recruit. The Liberal government's hate speech bill, C9, was again a hot topic of discussion during question period Monday in the House of Commons. The Bloc Québécois is pushing an amendment that could see religious texts like the Bible deemed hate speech. Bloc MPs are not happy with a Justice Committee meeting last week being cancelled.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, members of the Justice Committee were set to vote on repealing the religious exemption, but the Liberals canceled the committee meeting, and everything suggests that they will cancel it again tomorrow and Thursday. The Liberals are reneging on their agreement with the Bloc Québécois, and they are letting Quebecers down. The Liberals are pulling the plug on C9. The Prime Minister is rebuking his Justice Minister for choosing Quebec's side over that of right-wing religious groups. The Liberals' great concern about combating hate seems to be falling by the wayside, Mr. Speaker. How will they justify their about-face after so many broken promises? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
This particular bill, since inception, was designed to combat hate in this country and to offer protections for minorities, including religious minorities, who are facing hate. My priority is to see this bill adopted so we can offer protections for communities who frankly don't deserve to be faced with the hate crimes that they have been subjected to. That's going to require that we collaborate with different parties who have different points of view. I thank my colleague for the conversations that we've been able to share. I look forward to seeing the decision that's going to be taken, not by an individual minister, but by the Justice Committee as they consider potential amendments going forward. I very much look forward to see the results of those deliberations, and I hope we can see the swift adoption of this bill.
There are reports the bill is stalled because Justice Minister Sean Fraser's office brokered the religious exemption deal with the Bloc without getting buy-in from the Prime Minister's office. But a spokesperson for Fraser denied any friction with the PMO. Canada has deepened artificial intelligence partnerships with Germany and the European Union on Monday. During the G7 Industry, Digital and Technology Ministers meeting in Montreal, Canada signed agreements with both jurisdictions to collaborate on AI, digital infrastructure, and quantum technologies. AI Minister Evan Solomon hailed the pacts as a way to build on shared commitments and build trust.
And Hannah and I both agreed the bottom line in all this is that people will not only use these tools, they'll only use these tools if they trust them. Trust is the precursor to adoption and diffusion. Citizens need to know that their privacy is safe. Citizens need to know that their personal information is safe. And when we align our AI standards, Canadian and European companies can compete more effectively globally. And when we collaborate our approaches to digital credentials, we make cross-border interactions easier.
Today, we discussed how Canada and the EU can interconnect our high-performance computing ecosystems and also deepen cooperation on sovereign AI infrastructures. We would strongly welcome Canada's closer engagement also to our Euro HPC supercomputers, which could unlock access to world-class compute capacity and anchor our joint ambitions.
The Montreal meeting isn't entirely about digital and tech issues, as Industry Minister Melanie Joly is also hosting. Besides a tech policy agenda, there is also an industrial policy agenda. 62 Indigenous cultural artifacts from the Vatican arrived at Montreal's Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport, the latest stop in a journey that will see them ultimately return to their communities of origin as an act of furthering reconciliation. Indigenous leaders welcome the return of the artifacts gifted, but say more needs to be done to bring other items held elsewhere, including the Vatican.
Now that they are back home with us, our nations will assert their rights to determine how best to take care of them. These are not simply artifacts. They are our belongings, our ancestors, vital indicators of our nation's histories.
Before his passing, Pope Francis clearly expressed that he wished these items to return home, which Pope Leo XIV has willingly honored. Pope Leo XIV's gesture arises from the same spirit that animated Pope Francis' penitential pilgrimage, a pilgrimage in which he asked forgiveness for the Catholic Church's role in the intergenerational trauma caused by residential schools.
This is an important and emotional moment for many First Nations across this country. And I hope it will also be an important moment for all Canadians to consider the history and the future of this country. It's so important that we begin to work together. I think we've come a long way, and we have a long way to go.
A powerful 7.6 magnitude earthquake has struck off northern Japan. The Japanese Meteorological Agency says it triggered a tsunami of up to 50 centimeters in Pacific coast communities and warnings of potentially higher surges. Media reports say several people have been injured at a local hotel. Authorities say nuclear power plants in the region are doing safety checks and that so far no problems have been detected. The Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary issued a warning to citizens of the potential of larger second and third waves and urged them not to leave safe locations until the warnings have been lifted. Lethbridge police have charged a 21-year-old Cardston man with the attempted murder of his twin brother. On Saturday night, police responded to a report of a stabbing at a home along Lake Mount Boulevard South. When they arrived, they found a 21-year-old man in medical distress. The victim was transported to hospital by EMS. The subject was arrested without incident, and the knife believed to have been used in the attack was seized from the home. Police say it appears an argument escalated into a physical altercation with the accused, believing he had killed the victim. 21-year-old Bailey Nathaniel Manus of Cardston is charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and assault with a weapon. He has been remanded into custody and is scheduled to appear in court December 9th. The 21-year-old victim has been released from hospital and was recovering from his injuries. This is the time of year when people start preparing their Christmas wish lists for Santa and reflecting on how good or not they've been. In this spirit, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has released its 2025 Naughty and Nice list. CTF Federal Director Franco Terrazzano says politicians and bureaucrats make the naughty list when they raise taxes, waste money, or try to avoid accountability. But they make the nice list when they cut spending, reduce taxes, and improve transparency for taxpayers. Terrazzano says Ontario Premier Doug Ford tops the naughty list.
Ontario politicians gifted themselves a 35% pay raise this year. Ford took a pay raise that would make even Ebenezer Scrooge blush, a $73,000 hike. But the Ford government wasn't done there. No, they also brought back the platinum taxpayer-funded pensions and more lumps of coal. While Ford initially promised to end political welfare, this year Ford made Ontario's per-vote subsidy to political parties permanent. Also on the naughty list is Federal Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne for sticking future generations with massive government debt bills to pay back. You also have the Canada Revenue Agency on the naughty list. They left Santa on hold for nearly an hour, and then when they finally picked up the phone, they gave Santa the wrong tax information. You also have the British Columbia Finance Minister Brenda Bailey. Santa's little helpers caught Bailey billing taxpayers more than $6,000 for a limousine service during her trip to Boston. Also on the naughty list, you have Quebec Premier François Legault. He is the only premier left in Canada who still hammers his citizens with a consumer carbon tax. And then rounding out the naughty list for this year is Federal Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangri, and that's for moving ahead with the federal government's gun ban and confiscation scheme that targets law-abiding Canadian firearm owners.
Topping the taxpayers' nice list is Parliamentary Budget Officer Jason Jakes for sounding the alarm over the government's growing debt. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is also on the nice list because he made Saskatchewan the first carbon tax-free province in Canada. He also included Alberta Premier Danielle Smith on that list for refusing to spend $2 billion more to satisfy the Alberta Teachers Association. The Lethbridge Hurricanes Hockey Club has announced it has traded its captain, Logan Warmold, to the Spokane Chiefs in exchange for 2 third-round draft picks in 2026, a 4th-round draft pick in 2026, and a 4th-round draft pick in 2028.
When you think of Logan and him showing up here basically as a boy and turned into a man and put in a real good career here. Represented us in so many good ways, leadership, competitiveness, hockey sense, got better. Really proud of Logan as a Hurricane and want to wish him all the best going forward. You know, when you're making deals, it's one of those things where, you know, it's all on timing, right? And you know, if you wait too long, maybe the return isn't the same, or maybe it's a lot better, or maybe the player gets injured. You know, so there's lots of things that come into play. You know, we just felt the time was right. He felt that if he was going to get moved, that he would have preferred to go to the West, just because he's from Langley, and we'll continue to try to add to our group. From a competitive nature, I think we need to be more competitive individually and collectively.
Warmold ends his tenure in Lethbridge, sitting in the top 20 in Hurricane history in all offensive categories. Wow. Paramount has launched a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. The effort initiates a potential battle with Netflix for the company behind HBO, CNN, and DC Studios, and the right to reshape much of the nation's entertainment landscape.
Paramount said it's going straight to Warner Bros. Shareholders with a bid worth about $74.4 billion. It's also offering to buy the cable assets of Warner Bros. And is asking shareholders to reject the Netflix bid. On Friday, Netflix struck a deal to buy Warner Bros. Discovery. The transaction is expected to close in the next 12 to 18 months. But President Donald Trump said Sunday that the deal could be a problem because of the size of the combined market share.
Well, that's got to go through a process, and we'll see what happens. It's a lot of market share, so we'll have to see what happens.
The president said he will be involved in the decision about whether the federal government should approve the $72 billion deal.
In other news, plans are in the works to save hundreds of the roughly 1,000 jobs slated to be lost at Algoma Steel in Ontario. The head of the union that represents some of the affected employees says as many as 500 people could be back at work by the end of next year. He says the plans involve expanded capacity at Algoma through a government loan. Details are still being hammered out. The wealthy barber author David Chilton says young Canadians face a tougher financial landscape than when he wrote his bestseller 36 years ago. But he says those same young Canadians also face more opportunities. The investor and businessman has penned a fully updated version of his 1989 classic, but the personal financial principles he swore by still hold true now.
When I wrote the original Wealthy Barber, you literally had to go to your wallet and get out cash. And, you know, credit cards were really just coming into play in a big way, and normally reserved your credit card for special occasions or a big expense like a huge night out, et cetera. So all of those things have become easier, and that's not a good thing. It's just so much more tempting out there with the algorithms, and so much more easy to give into them temptation. That makes it tough. So in general, I think it's harder now than it's been.
Tips he gives for younger Canadians is to make use of newer financial tools like index funds, the tax-free savings account, and to be aware of TikTok finance influencers. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 141 to 31,169. The Dow is down 215 to 47,739. The S&P 500 was down 23 to 6,846, and the Nasdaq was down 32 to 23,545. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.21 to 58.86 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 43 cents to 4.85 US. Gold was down 8.57 to 41.90.29 US an ounce, and silver was down 13 cents to 58.14 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.57 per bushel, barley is at $5.98, canola is at $13.93, and corn is at $7.44 per bushel. Live cattle were up 17 cents to $227.32. Feeder cattle January contract was down $3.40 to $335.65, and lean hogs are up 65 cents to $82.30. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $72.20 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the CEO of Northback Holdings was the center of attention at a Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce luncheon Monday. Northback is behind the controversial Grassy Mountain coal mine planned for the eastern slopes of the Rockies. Mike Young told the crowd Northback would carefully balance boosting the economy while protecting the environment. Protesters outside the luncheon say they're worried about selenium from the mining process poisoning the Old Man watershed. Conflicts continue to erupt around the world. New York City's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani is giving illegal immigrants tips to resist ICE agents, and over $1 billion in Minnesotan taxpayer money has been diverted to a Somali terrorist group. It's a lot to take in, but we have Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, to break all of it down for us. Her interview coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.